all 4 co-founders have agreed to come under the new nonprofit heading called Therapeutic Living Incorporated. And Therapeutic Living Incorporated has just been created as a 501c3, so that now you can take a tax deduction for donations made through the website, not donations here. What we're still going to do with the donations here, and thank you for those of you who put into the donation box, we're very grateful for that. I hope you like the new kitchen. Do you like the new kitchen? And so we're still going to turn over those donations to the church that hosts us, because we really like this venue and we really want to, help defray the expenses of doing this. But if you donate through the website Therapeutic Living Incorporated or therapeuticliving.com, and ATX Alive is going to be a committee of therapeuticliving.com, and we decided that it was time to get a formal structure for it. And we haven't gotten signatures from everybody yet, but we've gotten everybody's verbal agreement among the co-founders, and so we're pretty excited about that. And so thank you very much for all your support. And before I get into today's topic, is there anybody else who has an announcement that can't wait? The topic is about an hour. Is there anybody who needs to make an announcement before and has to leave early?
I don't have an announcement, but I have a question.
Come.
There's a whole bunch of us on the table that absolutely loved the sweet potato fries, so however you did them, please spill the beans and post it up on the Facebook page.
Yay, Patty Fallow.
Fry us to potato fries.
The sweet potato fries were a hit. That's the message. And so the pressure is on for Patty Fallow to post her recipe on the Facebook page of ATX Alive. Yes. And if you like our page, ATX Alive, and you're willing to join the ATX Alive private Facebook group, let us know and seek to join that. And that's just for people that we know that aren't going to be haters on the plant-based diet. Because as you know, there are haters out there for the plant-based diet. And speaking of, well, I'll save that. Isn't it funny how good things can happen, really great things can happen in 1 week, and really bad things can happen in 1 week? So I'll tell you about the great things. Please keep me in your thoughts for this Friday. I will be testifying in Houston before the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, because every 5 years they remake the dietary guidelines. And so I've been very excited. I was waiting on pins and needles for them to open that registration. This happened last month for the public, and we only get 3 minutes, and we can't use PowerPoint, but I'm going to get some professional posters made, I can hold up, things, and I'm going to use my 3 minutes to let them know that plant-based diets are the way to go. And I'm just one of many who's going to be speaking that day, but I'll be in Houston, and on Thursday night, Sean and I and all the people who are going to speak have been invited to eat with Dr. Neil Barnard. And without Dr. Neil Barnard, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, we wouldn't even know about this or have the opportunity. They helped us to know, and so we could do this. And so we're grateful to them. And so so what happened bad is, my husband doesn't even know this yet, sorry. At 9 o'clock last night, someone posted a really bad Yelp review, and they referred to Dr. Carney as a he, and that's not the bad part. The part is that it's like totally spammy. It's like I'm a surgeon that does aesthetic surgery for the sexual parts of the body, and they're saying that I'm going to do the surgery to do this enhancement or whatever, and it's just a really long thing, a 3-star review, and I'm not really sure what to do about it. And so if you have any advice as to, I don't know what you can do when people, pardon? Highlight it. The reason I'm mentioning it to you is because if you guys are willing to, if you have the Apple accounts, to go on there and just let them know that I'm not a aesthetic surgeon, and, I don't know. You have to have some backbone when you eat a whole foods plant-based diet, because this way of eating generates a lot of hate out there. It's interesting. I don't know what it's about, but anyway, just letting you know, if you're so inclined to leave a good review on Yelp, and maybe we can just overcome evil with good. I don't know. Let's hope. Let's hope. And let's see. Oh, there's a health checkup, a health fair, and it's on February 2. And we have moved the date of the health fair to February 2 from noon to 5, because we have been able to secure a big truck filled with brand new clothing with still the tags on to give away to people who need clothing. And so if any of you would like to come from noon to 5 on February 2 to this very place, we'll be measuring blood pressures and blood sugars, and I'll be doing a little weight loss food demo and handing out vegan oil-free cookies, and you're welcome to come and help us out on that day. If you know people who need clothing and who could benefit from some nice new clothing, please give them the information of how to get here on February 2 from noon to 5. Okay, let's see what we can do. The secrets of anti-aging. Sean, I'm having difficulty. I'm not getting it to, turn it on helps. Sorry, dear. Okay. The brain is the first to go. Speaking of age, I'm going to achieve a milestone this month. In a few days, I will be joining an elite group. And that is the group of people 60 years old and older. And isn't this a cheery message? The faster we age, the sooner we die. But I would just, and you don't have to do this, and maybe it's, forgive me if I'm offending anyone, but if you're over the age of 60, if you're 60 or above, could you just raise your hand so that people will see that we've got a lot of good-looking 60 plus in this room, and the plant-based diet can help you get there, and that's good. And so why are we studying this topic of anti-aging? We want to save money. We really would prefer not to pay a bunch of money to the surgical centers and the hospitals and the pharmaceutical industry, and we want to feel better. We don't want those aches and pains and the digestive issues and the skin things, and we want to look better. And maybe they're in the wrong order. Maybe we just really want to look better and then we don't care about the rest. We want to stave off disabilities. And I want you to consider this phrase, squaring the curve. Because isn't it what we really want to do is we want to live with all our faculties intact, our hearing and our vision and our mind and our memory, and then boom, we die, we fall under a bus or something at age 120 or whatever, and that's called squaring the curve. What we don't want is this long, slow decline of disabilities and losing the memory and losing things like that. And wouldn't it be good if we could die suddenly at an older age, having lived a good full life, without the prolonged suffering, the prolonged spending of all the expenses that are expended in the last 2 weeks of most people's lives? There's a huge expenditure of money in the last 2 weeks of people's lives. And I'm not sure it's sustainable. We spend a lot of our gross domestic product on healthcare in this country, and I don't think we have the health to show for it. So what do we want to avoid so that we won't prematurely age ourselves? We want to avoid modern diseases, and if we want to avoid modern diseases, we need to avoid modern foods, which stand for meat, oil, dairy, eggs, refined foods. What do I mean by that? Like brown rice made into brown rice flour is not as healthy as brown rice. Brown rice is intact, it's whole, it's unprocessed. The processing of brown rice into brown rice flour increases the calorie density. Brown rice has about 550 calories per pound of brown rice, but brown rice flour has 1,450 calories per pound of brown rice flour. And as we will see as we go through this talk, calorie restrictions is one of those secrets to anti-aging. So it's just easier to overeat on foods made from flour. And then there's narcotic. What do I mean by that? Well, obviously an opioid overdose does not tend towards longevity. But when I say narcotic, I also mean any foods or substances that are mind-altering, because these have been shown to have health consequences. And even caffeine, as we know, that initial pick-me-up can be a mind-altering, although it's not like, altered level of consciousness, different like that, but it can be something that can age you. Certainly, it's well known that the more caffeine, the more wrinkles. And the caffeine can be in coffee, tea, soda, or chocolate. Okay, so food factors to slow aging. You know I'm going to talk about food because ATX Alive is about the promotion of health through plant-based diets. There's many other secrets too, but I think food is probably the number one. It's probably about 80% of it. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go real technical into all the biochemistry of it. I just want you to know it's there. And you can type these little buzzwords into the search field at drcarney.com or nutritionfacts.org, and you can see the scientific studies that show what the harm is from AGEs. That stands for advanced glycation end products. And foods fall somewhere on a scale from a low amount of AGEs, which is the healthiest foods, such as produce, fruits and vegetables, to a high amount of AGEs, like processed meats. Processed meats are on the World Health Organization's classification as a Class 1 carcinogen. Class 1 means we know, without a doubt, this stuff causes cancer, like bacon and pepperoni, and very, very high in AGEs. And aptly named, this acronym, these foods age you. And then PAH stands for polyaromatic hydrocarbons. And when you heat up certain oils, or especially meats, you develop polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which greatly contribute to cancer and autoimmune disease. And then there's the nitrosamines. These also, especially for colon cancer, when these come in contact with the bowel, they induce the formation of polyps, which then can grow into colon cancer. Thymine dimers. I was studying about this in the 1980s when I was in college. There are compounds in food that can break down your DNA. And so in the nucleus of your cells, there's a compound called thymine, and when you are damaging them, you're aging prematurely. And meat, dairy, eggs, these kinds of things can damage your DNA on the little nitty-gritty level, and that can have consequences that can be seen. Yes?
I recently saw a package of chocolate that just had kind of chocolate, sugar, cocoa butter, and it said that in California it has carcinogens and has been known to cause birth defects.
Wow.
So what would be, or is chocolate that way? Is there something in it?
There is. There's caffeine and theobromine in chocolate. And in October, I was able to bring a presentation to you showing the increased risk of miscarriages, infertility, cancer from consumption of caffeine. So I don't know if that's the chocolate that they're talking about, the actual cacao, which has the theobromine, which is in greater abundance than caffeine in chocolate. But these bitter alkaloids or methylxanthines are in the plant to prevent overgrazing, but they increase our estrogen level. And estrogen is a growth promoter. Without estrogen, no fetus would grow, no breast would grow, no cancer would grow. And if we are over-estrogenized, maybe that's where they're coming from. Because since 2012, we've clearly had the science to show that caffeine increases estrogen, and we know that too much estrogen is a cancer promoter. That's why anti-estrogen drugs are given to prostate cancer patients. It's a drug called Lupron that causes estrogen levels to go so low that the gentlemen have hot flashes. And Lupron can be life-saving because it lowers estrogen in men and in women. So I don't know. If it was vegan chocolate, then we can't blame the milk or whatever.
Yeah, it was a vegan chocolate package.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So all the coffee actually has to have a cancer liquid because of something that's in there. So it might be, like you said, the caffeine or something.
Could be.
Because, yeah, Starbucks and coffee, it would have.
They have that labeling too.
Prop 65 or something.
Okay.
Requires them to put cancer.
Wow. So Lauren is saying that caffeinated products are now required, or at least at Starbucks, to carry that.
I'm not sure if it's the caffeine, but yeah, I know coffee does, and coffee and chocolate have.
Coffee is carrying the cancer warning label. Yeah, esophageal cancer for sure. Yeah. Okay, and then the amino acid, and I'm not trying to bore you with too much nitty-gritty science, but the amino acid mix that predominates in plants is different than the amino acid mix that predominates in animal products. The animal products have more of the amino acids that contain sulfur, and this contributes to a high acid load, sulfuric acid, in the body, and the kidney has to wash out that sulfuric acid, and these this acid state is well known to be favorable to the initiation and progression and spread of cancer. And so there are many, many, many reasons to eat a plant-based diet and to avoid meat, dairy, and eggs. And one of the best reasons of all is your appearance. And many of you know our dear friend Shirley. She's not with us here at this meeting today, but she's alive and thriving, and she's doing well. And so Shirley knows the importance of avoiding meat, oil, dairy, eggs, and refined stuff, and narcotics. And so, and Shirley, this is actually an older picture, and Shirley has lost even more weight. It looks even better now, if that were possible. And so we're going to talk about how our bodies stay younger longer, and circulation is the key. Perfect health depends upon perfect circulation. So you really don't want to do anything that will harm your circulation. And how does food age us prematurely? Thank you for your indulgence, for those of you who have heard me say this so often, but we've got new people here. There's new people here each time. Could I have a show of hands? How many people here are new today for the first time? Thank you. Wow. Isn't this wonderful? Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. So thank you for bearing with me. The endothelial cells are the velvety lining of our arteries. And endo means inside, and this is a normal human artery with that velvety coating of endothelial cell. And the endothelial cell makes a gas called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide dilates the arteries to their maximum youthful openness. And when you've got dilated arteries, you've got healthy blood flow. So your knee meniscus is not wearing out. Your back discs aren't slipping as much. And what nourishes the endothelium? It's the plants. The dark leafy greens specifically have been scientifically proven to nourish endothelial cells, resulting in maximal artery dilation through the production of nitric oxide. Beets are another one. In fact, you could see the turnips and stuff. And so the endothelial cell can get hurt and not make any more nitric oxide, and the arteries can get narrow within 20 minutes of eating or drinking or smoking something that can hurt the endothelial cells. And you might say, well, okay, so no more nitric oxide. Well, so what? Why does that matter? It matters because when the endothelial cell is hurt and you have reduced blood flow because of reduced nitric oxide, that creates painful conditions, inflammation, premature aging of the brain, all kinds of things. And so protecting your lining of the arteries, your endothelial cells, by knowing which foods, beverages, and smoked substances can hurt it, that's going to help you in your anti-aging fight. But what if you don't like the taste of collard greens? What if you won't eat your kale or Swiss chard? What's so wrong with hindering the blood flow to the organs? What's wrong with eating French fries and maple syrup? They're vegan, right? Well, let's find out which foods age us prematurely, even if they are vegan. We don't want that reduced blood flow because it could age you. And so, sorry, there we go. Oops. Okay. So let's go to 1999 with Dr. Robert Vogel. He developed a study called the brachial artery tourniquet test. The brachial artery is an artery in your arm, and he put a tourniquet, which is a blood pressure cuff, on the upper arm. And then he got a Doppler ultrasound to measure the artery diameter after the stress of ischemia. Ischemia is lack of blood flow. So when you inflate a blood pressure cuff, that's going to cut off the blood flow. You know how your arm feels kind of tingly and weird after the blood pressure cuff has been inflated a long time? So then Dr. Vogel fed them different foods and beverages. And he wanted to know what foods and beverages hurt the artery lining. You see, when they were measuring artery diameter, they were measuring it after they let the blood flow come back into the arm. They would inflate the cuff and they would cut off the blood flow. And within 20 minutes of feeding people certain substances, instead of dilating, you would think that the arteries would dilate after being deprived of their oxygen. The downstream arteries is what they were measuring, their diameter and their flow. And flow-mediated dilation was restricted by 31%. Now I said blood flow, but actually the technical term is flow-mediated dilation was restricted by 30%. That means that instead of, if the artery is starting out at its usual diameter, 100%, it went down 31%, and it stayed narrow for 4 hours. What was this vegan substance that they fed the person? Olive oil. Was it extra virgin olive oil? Was it organic olive oil? It probably was. And yet, oil hurts the arteries. Oil narrows the artery diameter. And so when we understand that olive oil is not healthy, all oils constrict the arteries, even coconut oil, no matter how much you tell me about medium chain triglycerides, yes, all oil hurts the arteries, and all oil is going to, it's not going to prevent aging the way an oil-free plant-based diet will. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to go to doctors who only know ill, pill, and bill, because it's not really the way that you want to spend your money to go to a doctor who doesn't know the power of plants. There are foods that can be used as medicine, and I'm not saying ditch all your medicines. I'm not saying anything against my medical. A plant-based diet is going to reverse every symptom you ever had and keep you from every symptom and every disease ever. No, but the sooner you start, the better your future. What is mTOR? mTOR is something inside us, a chemical compound, and it ages us. So, rapamycin, okay, little history, it's a story. It's from Easter Island, and Easter Island has a little rodent, a little mammal, and the natives call it Rapa Nui, and so they named the chemical that they found in this little rodent that lives a long time, rapamycin. And rapamycin inhibits, indirectly, but inhibits mTOR. mTOR is this bad thing that ages us prematurely. What does mTOR stand for? Mechanistic target of rapamycin. So they didn't even know what to call it, except they found these two things together, the rapamycin. And when you inhibit this bad thing, you've got less cancer and slower aging. So we want to inhibit our mTOR. Rapamycin is the first mTOR inhibitor that we found. As you can imagine, the pharmaceutical industry, the supplement industry is very hot to make a supplement that will keep you from aging. And of course, where are they looking? They're looking to the natural world to try and find these things. And how rapamycin inhibits mTOR when mTOR is inhibited, that inhibits cell growth and proliferation. So when cells are growing out of control, that's the definition of cancer. Some of the very best mTOR inhibiting fruits and veggies include broccoli, soy, even though soy is high fat, turmeric, grapes, onions, strawberries, blueberries, mangoes. This is a great list, and it reminds me of a study done on natural monoamine oxidase inhibitors. So what's a monoamine? That's a feel-good chemical, like endorphins, serotonin, dopamine. What's a monoamine oxidase inhibitor? It breaks down our feel-good chemicals. Boo, we don't want our feel-good chemicals really broken down that much. And one of the things from the list that's very similar to this list is oregano. Is one of those things that can help you to inhibit your natural breakdown of your feel-good chemicals. And why should you listen to me? I have been very privileged to be in Austin because there I met Rip Esselstyn. I was hired as his first medical director for the employees of Whole Foods Market. And I'm going to tell the USDA this coming Friday what I saw when Rip Esselstyn, the CEO of Engine 2 Immersion, took the employees of Whole Foods Market to a beautiful resort camp just north of Austin, Texas, to feed them a diet without meat, dairy, eggs, and oil. And he brought his famous father, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn Jr., MD, from the Cleveland Clinic, who wrote Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And he brought Dr. T. Colin Campbell and John Robbins, and it was a wonderful opportunity that I had to screen this movie before they got the final version out. How many of you have not seen this movie? I'm not trying to embarrass you, but if you haven't seen this movie, it's on Netflix. And this is a wonderful movie to share with your friends and family. And we got some fantastic results in 1 week. We fed them a diet without meat, dairy, eggs, and oil. My staff measured the weights and the blood pressures at the beginning of the week and the end of the week. And blood pressures dropped. Blood sugars normalized for many people. I was able to decrease their insulin doses. I was able to get people off of blood pressure medicines. Cholesterol and triglycerides dropped. Cholesterol could drop 100 points in 5 days. Triglycerides even way more. And they dropped weight, eating all that they wanted. It was a buffet. And they could go back for seconds and thirds, and it was just food without meat, dairy, eggs, or oil. And they could do this while sitting in lecture 40 hours. We had 40 hours of lecture, plus the evening food demos and things, and they were doing a lot of sitting that week. They were not exercising 8 hours a day. As good as exercise is, we had an optional hour of exercise every morning that we offered them, and we encouraged them to come, but we didn't force them, and they loved the food. Did you find some good food today? Did anybody enjoy the meal? Raise your hand if you found something good that you could eat. Yeah, I enjoyed the meal too. And so, the more concentrated in calories a food is, the greater the potential for rapidly aging us. And we want to get satisfied by filling our bellies. We restricted them 10%, less disease, longer life. And they kept restricting it back and back and back until they got to 60% of calorie restriction. And the animals had the least illness and the longest lifespan. Now, if you restrict the calories more than 60% then they start to starve, and of course that's not too good for longevity. And so overconsumption of calories has been shown to increase depression and shorten life. And speaking of depression, depression has a 5-year survival rate that is worse than some cancers. And depression is a very important thing for you to overcome to prevent yourself from prematurely aging. And so Dr. Neil Nedley has done a lot of important work on prevention of depression, and I have adapted his categories for length of life. And so these are his categories, but he did it for depression. And the top 2, genetic and developmental, which is developmental is the way that we were raised. We can't do anything about that. But we can do something about our lifestyle in terms of exercise. We can incorporate exercise, fresh air, sunshine into our lifestyle. And that's very important, whether you're fighting depression or premature aging. And then there's nutrition, which we've talked a lot about. And we need to understand folate, which comes from foliage, the leafy greens. And we need to understand that a diet too high in fat may prematurely age us, even if the fats are vegan fats. Sugar, which certainly comes from plants, but it's so concentrated in calories, it hurts the endothelial cell. Oh, I don't know how that slide didn't get in here, but I didn't give you the slide for Dr. Robert Vogel's what was on the list. Caffeine, that hurts the endothelial cell, and it decreases blood flow 40% within 20 minutes. And caffeine keeps blood flow restricted to the brain, to the muscles, to the skin for wrinkles. It keeps it restricted for 4 hours. Alcohol also restricts blood flow by inhibiting the endothelial cell, and 40%. And then olive oil, 31%. And animal protein that is fat-free, like egg white, that hurt the endothelial cell. Cholesterol, which is only found in meat, dairy, and eggs, that hurt the endothelial cell, restricted blood flow. And then there are some vegan things like sugar, refined sweeteners, that hurt the endothelial cell. And then, of course, pot and tobacco. Okay, so going on with the causes of depression and premature aging, there are toxic insults such as lead, mercury, arsenic, bismuth, other toxins. These aren't good for our longevity, and many of them are coming in through meat, dairy, and eggs. Addictions, alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, drugs, pot, those shorten lifespan. Medical reasons, head injuries, and it's important to be smart about wearing helmets if you're biking and things like that. And then social, the absence of support. When you lose a spouse, it prematurely ages you. It's hard. And then of course our frontal lobes, how we talk to ourselves. That has a lot to do with how long we're going to live. So, in closing, what if you had 10 thumbtacks resting point up on your chair, the chair where you were planning to sit down? That would hurt, right? If you sat down on 10 thumbtacks with the points resting up, it would be, ouch, my goodness. What could those thumbtacks represent? Could they represent habits that hurt us? Not getting enough exercise, not drinking enough water, that's an important habit. Now, what if you took those 10 thumbtacks and you made big changes? It's first of the year, you're thinking, okay, I'm on a new leaf, I'm gonna be healthy, and you took away 9 of the 10. Wow, that's a big change, 90%. That is, it takes effort to change. It's hard to change. Change is difficult. It's so much work. Habits are hard to break. But 9 out of 10, they're almost all gone. There you go. Cross them out one by one, took them away. But what if you're still eating vegetable oils, or you're still just doing one of those things. I mean, pick one. What if you took away 9, leaving only 1 left? If you sat down on that, just one, would it still hurt? It would. So why? Am I being so strict with you? You can't have any fun, No, I'm telling you my own story. You don't have to live by the rules I've chosen to live by, but I don't want to be asthmatic anymore, and I used to be. And some remedies, you have to go all the way, and it was not enough for me to be vegan, I had to give up the oils, and 1 month after giving up the oils, I lost the asthma. Some remedies have to go all the way to get you feeling your best. You know how these old-fashioned padlocks, and you have to dial the numbers and spin it just right, and you have to go past, and if you're just like 1 digit off, will that thing open? It might not open. The nature of some situations is that for some of us, we're gonna have to go all the way to feel our best, to reach our goals. So why do I sound so idealistic? There are some medical problems that aren't going to go away unless you start off with water-only fasting, which should be done medically supervised, and there's a wonderful place called True North Health Center in Northern California that can do that. And water-only fasting is not a long-term strategy. You can't live on just water and air. You need food. But water-only fasting can reset your immune system, and it can reset your taste buds so that foods that were once too bland, boring, bitter, you just didn't like eating that way, you can appreciate them quite a bit more after a water-only fast. If some people change just a little bit for a little while, they may not feel good enough, they may not go long enough to undo the damage done in past years, and so it doesn't motivate them. And some things, you have to do it for like 6 months to really reverse some disease and clean out your arteries. So, what if you had 10 thumbtacks resting point up on your chair, the chair where you're planning to sit down in 2020? Is there anything that you want to change this year? Anything that you think could protect your future and prevent premature aging? This year, go all the way to better health. Arm yourself with scientific evidence for the battle against destructive lifestyle choices, the biggest battle that we have to fight. And I'm grateful to all of those people who have mentored me and shared their stories with me. I'm grateful to every patient who's reversed lupus and diabetes and their bones got thicker. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Patty Fallow. She's one of the admins at this Facebook site called McDougall Friends. There's more than 34,000, honestly, I've lost count. How many? I don't know how many. How many are there now?
I think it is over about 35,000 or so.
35,000 people. And so if you're new to this, go, and you have Facebook, go and just hang out and read the posts at McDougall Friends, and of course the Forks Over Knives Facebook site and other websites. And on Netflix there's the movies Game Changers, What the Health, and Forks Over Knives, and arm yourself with these things, and then have parties with your friends that you invite them over for delicious plant-based food, and you share some of this stuff with them, and have a great 2020, a healthier 2020, and younger next year. Thank you very much. Sigrid.
So, suppose that I loved spinach, but I didn't love broccoli and many of the other greens. Do you need the variety within the good categories of food? How important is the variety?
Some people are allergic to cabbage, or Brussels sprouts, or things like that, and they do well without them. And so I think a variety is a good thing. I don't think that a wide variety is essential, because there are some people who are eating 70% of their calories from Japanese sweet potatoes and thriving. They are a famous blue zone from Okinawa, and prior to World War II, their diet, 70% of the calories or more came from those Japanese sweet potatoes. So that wasn't much variety for them, but they did well. Yes, Patty?
I was wondering, when you're talking about the nitric oxide and the dark leafy greens, would you consider romaine lettuce to be a dark leafy green, or is that more of a light leafy green?
The question is romaine lettuce a dark leafy green? I I don't know how they classify that. I'm not a dietitian, and I don't know if that's classified as dark leafy green. Is it really, really good for you? Yes.
Yeah.
Is iceberg lettuce good for you?
Yes.
It is good for you. Now, does it have as much nutrition as Swiss chard? No, it doesn't. But is it still good for you and better for you than other things? Yes. There's a lot of things that I can think of that I wouldn't eat, and I would prefer iceberg lettuce. But what if I went to a restaurant and all they had that I could eat was iceberg lettuce? Would I order 5 bowls of it so that I could be there with my friends and family or my business clients and just be there for the ambiance and the conversation? Yeah, sure I would. Yes,
Does it
Harriet.
make a difference if you take B12 vitamins in a pill or in a liquid form?
The question is, does it make a difference if you take B vitamins in a pill or liquid form? Some people need to absorb it under their tongue, and that's yet another way. There are shots of it also. And some people have a hard time absorbing it in any way. So it's a very person-dependent question. And some people do better on liquid, and some people do better on pills, and some people overdose on either. And so that's one of the gray areas that you need to get your levels measured. Yeah, because there's so many supplements out there and so many different people. And some people have had bariatric surgery, and that makes a difference, and yeah. John?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is that we have a very sick patient, right, and that we're all dependent on, and that's Mother Earth. And the whole plant way of living is, without a doubt, in terms of science supporting it, is a whole plant-based approach to living. So it's not just a consideration on our own life, but it's our mother, and we're all on the same spaceship together. So that's one thing. The other is that you didn't mention raw versus cooked.
Raw is great.
Yeah. Thank you. You can summarize it there.
Do you have to be all raw to overcome certain cancers? No. Will people overcome certain cancers better on raw? Some people will. Some people, for them to overcome the cancer that they have, they may need to go all raw. Many raw foods eat too much fat, and that's not good for you. And if you've got a job and children, sometimes it's. I'm not saying that anybody needs to go all raw, but some people thrive on an all raw diet, and if they do, great. There's room for everyone. Yes, ma'am.
So I had a question about, you have the nutrition, but what are your suggestions or recommendations for cosmetic procedures for anti-aging? A bunch of my friends are doing Botox and fillers, and so I just kind of wanted to know your thoughts on that.
The question is, what are my opinions on anti-aging aesthetic things like Botox, collagen injections, fillers? I'm just going to say no comment.
Is there any cosmetic procedures that you recommend, like a microdermabrasion or peels that can help with anti-aging in addition to nutrition?
Again, and thank you, Felicia. I appreciate it, and I'm not trying to be a jerk or rude or anything, but I'm just going to say no comment about that, because this might go on the internet, and I don't want to say things unless I've got data to share with you. And there is data, and I have an opinion, but at this moment, I'm not prepared to share it. Thank you. Yes, Garrett.
So I'm seeing a lot of propaganda about how you need fat for your brain, and I see MCT and everything now. Can you comment about that? You briefly talked about, but why is it being marketed so strongly?
Oh, that's a wonderful couple of questions. So she asked, do you need fat for your brain? Did you need to eat fat for your brain? And why is fat being so marketed now? So I'm going to. We're done. I'm going to answer the second question here first. Why is fat being marketed? Well, fat is addicting and hits the pleasure center, and fat is any product that's addicting has a great profit potential, and it's convenient. Animal products are very high in fat, and they're delicious when you have a taste bud, that's what you're used to. They're delicious because the pleasure center releases its storages of feel-good chemicals, and that lifts them high, and we interpret that as delicious. So it's profitable to market it, and as you know, there's a great pushback by the food industry. Dairies are going bankrupt at an unprecedented rate, and because people are understanding the dangers of dairy. Do we need fat? Well, it depends on your age. An infant needs a much higher fat diet than a person who's over 1 year of age. An infant's brain is not yet myelinated. Myelin is a fat that coats the nerves of the brain. So the infant needs a very high fat diet, and breast milk is perfect for that. Human breast milk has less than 10% of its calories from protein, depending on the mother's diet, between 4 and 10%. Now, cow's milk has 20% of its calories from protein because the cow is a different species that must grow from 60-pound infant to 600-pound yearling in 1 year. And of course, cow's milk has a lot of fat too. What is the brain's fuel? I'm going to ask you guys, tell me, what is the one substrate that the brain burns for fuel? What is that? Glucose, very good. And is glucose a fat? No. There are 3 macronutrients: fat, carbohydrate, and protein. Which one is glucose? It's a carbohydrate. The trouble the mischaracterization of all carbohydrates as carbs. People say carbs are bad, and yet that's not true, because white sugar is a carbohydrate that is very refined, and I completely avoid it. So do I eat white sugar because I need glucose for my brain? No. But do I eat complex carbohydrates from beans and sweet potatoes? Absolutely I do. Brown rice, you bet I eat that. And so the original question was, don't we need fat for our brain? Well, there are needs for fat, and that's why the foods have, if you eat a plant-based diet and you avoid the high-fat foods like soy and avocado and nuts and seeds and olives and coconut, if you avoid those high-fat foods, you can get about 10% of your calories from fat or less just from the other. Like kale has 13% of its calories from fat. Strawberries have 11% of their calories from fat. Chickpeas have 16% of their calories from fat. We're going to get enough fats from a whole foods plant-based diet without oils. I myself have chosen to eat very few nuts and seeds. Do I eat them? Yes. Do I eat them very sparingly, much more sparingly than most people want to? Yes. Do I like nuts and seeds? Oh, yes, but I don't eat them because this anti-aging thing. I know I'm hitting 60 this month, and I want to keep my energy levels and my breathing power and my muscle power, my brain power, and all that stuff. And so I'm keeping my fats low because calorie restriction, remember that thing about calorie restriction? So that's my strategy for doing that. Are my omega-3 levels in the blood test deficient? Never. Are there fat-free vegans, are there oil-free vegans in this room who are avoiding all the foods that are high in fat, such as greater than 20% of their calories from fat? Yes, there are people in this room who eat in the way that I have chosen to eat, and their omega-3 levels are perfect. They're great. When the omega-3 levels become deficient, it's because we've eaten so much omega-6, which is all the other fats, that it pushes the omega-3 level down artificially. And when you have an omega-3 deficiency, that is a sign that you're eating too much overall fat. So, in answer to your question, don't we need to eat fats for our brain? To a certain extent, we need fats, but we're getting them in beans and greens and squash and yams, and we don't have to eat olives, we don't have to eat medium-chain triglycerides and all those things that they say, but those things are touted to get you to buy certain products.
Well, I was going to say, with coffee or caffeine, it's kind of in the same way, because I understand what you said about caffeine, and I agree with you, but then there are some people in the public that I talk with, and they say, oh, my doctor says coffee is good for you, and it's a plant, and we should be drinking it. So why is there controversial studies on coffee?
Coffee is a very profitable product. It's a very addicting product. It's coffee Coffee is often mixed with milk and sugar, which makes it triply addicting, along with the caffeine in it. And the science of marketing, or the art of marketing, is to tout one good aspect of coffee, the antioxidants. Hey, it comes from plants. Newsflash, plants have antioxidants. But coffee isn't the only plant that has antioxidants, you know that. And when they tout the one good thing about it, but they ignore the other things about it, the miscarriages, the infertility, the lowered sperm counts, the decreased testosterone, I mean, that doesn't sell product if people know about that. So they're not gonna let you know about that. And have you noticed that the media is the mainstream media is kind of geared to sell product? I mean, that's the news that you hear. That pushes product. Yes, Helen.
So what about, I'm slowly backing off of caffeine, but some of my friends are saying, teas and this and that, isn't there a lot of caffeine in tea?
There's less caffeine in green tea than in black tea. Forgive me for repeating, I mean, I've said these things over and over, but so to get green tea to become black tea, you add this mixture of bacteria, and they eat the nutrients out of the green leaves, and they leave behind this vile, bitter, caffeinated stuff called black tea, and the nutrients have been, eaten out of it, and so that's why they say, oh, green tea, it's got the antioxidants, because they haven't put the bacteria in to turn green tea into black tea. And all the plants have antioxidants, and when they did the studies that show, oh, green tea is so great for you, what a sad commentary that most of the people's antioxidants coming from green tea. I mean, there's plenty of other sources to get your antioxidants. But they rigged the study groups so that the people who got the green tea were in the group that were younger, more slender, more likely to eat fruits and veggies, higher socioeconomic status, higher academic level. They had more degrees. Did I already say less likely to smoke? And in the group that didn't get the green tea, they were older, they were heavier, they were more likely to smoke, less likely to eat fruits and veggies, lower socioeconomic, and less educated. And so you just look at the health of those two groups, who's gonna have better health from the get-go, whether you give them green tea or not. But if you rig a study to get the result that you want, because that's what's happening now, vendors of blueberries, vendors of, caffeine, vendors of anything, they want studies, they want to hire scientists that will make the public think this product is going to do marvelous things for me, and this product is worth buying. And that's who's funding a lot of the science that's being done now. It's being done to market. Yes, Roz?
So to Gira's question about the grain and fat, if you eat a whole food plant-based diet, high in dark green leafy vegetables, and you eat carbohydrate-rich foods like sweet potatoes, would there be a reason to protect your brain health, and the brain runs on glucose from the sweet potatoes or the vegetables, would there be a reason to protect your brain health by adding flax or chia?
You don't have to add flax.
Walnuts.
You don't have to add the richest sources of omega-3 from the plant-based world, such as walnuts, flax, and chia. You don't have to add that to a low-fat plant-based diet to protect your brain. There are statements on the internet, in books, that say that vegans are going to get demented and lose their memory because they aren't eating nuts and seeds, they're not taking an omega-3 supplement, and follow the money. And when vegans are scared into thinking that they must have omega-3 supplements or flax, walnuts, and chia, it does a disservice to the plant-based world, because we don't need those things to prevent memory loss and cognitive decline. Yes, John?
We're a culture that looks for the silver bullet rather than paying attention to nature that represents diversity. That's just a comment. But I wanted to have you talk about bioavailability. And when we're whole plant-based, the cellular membrane is tough. And so do you think there's also merits in going into high-speed blending?
No.
Okay. Here's another summary.
substitutes made out of mushrooms.
Coffee substitutes made out of mushrooms.
Yes. What's your opinion on all the different mushrooms that they're touting as superfoods?
Two questions I hear in your, what do you think of mushroom coffees? I believe that delicious coffee alternatives can be made from many plants, and I would have to read the label to see what I think of a particular brand, but I've heard of these things. I haven't tried it myself. And there was a second question in there. It was like, superfood. That was it. Superfood. Yeah, superfood. Superfood. Don't get me started.
No, specifically mushrooms.
Mushrooms is superfood. Mushroom superfood. Mushrooms. Are mushrooms good for us? Well, they do good things for us. Are mushrooms something that we must have? No. Some people are definitely allergic to them and they can thrive without mushrooms. Do superfoods exist? Well, I think plants are the superfoods, and that's how, as far as I take it. Yes.
Recently had a CT scan. He's got a very high calcium score from the 1950s. I asked him about his lipid panels, cholesterol, and triglycerides. He's on like high blood pressure medicine, statins, all that. He eats meat and everything. But all of his lipid panels look good. All his triglycerides and cholesterol levels were fine. So I'm just like wondering, well, how do I explain the buildup of arteriosclerosis and buildup in the cells?
I'm so glad you asked. Linda has asked a question about, well, hey, the lipid panel, the blood work looks great. Why is his coronary calcium score on the heart CT so bad? You see, it's more than just the cholesterol number. It's the level of inflammation. A plant-based diet is very anti-inflammatory, and you can have people with heart attacks who have total cholesterol levels of 146, which is ideal. And yet, when we force the cholesterol numbers down with a pill, such as a statin, which is a lipid-lowering drug, we are not doing anything about the inflammation. And the inflammation is more deadly than the cholesterol. I'm not saying cholesterol is something that we need to include in our diet. Your liver will make all the cholesterol that you need. But if you understand that statins can make the numbers look great, but they're doing great harm to the brain. The FDA came out with a warning in 2011 about memory loss and brain fog caused by statins, about blood sugars increasing by statins. The harm to the muscles, the liver, and the brain make me not want to prescribe statins for people, unless there's absolutely no alternative. Sigrid.
Is there a place for statins in that family history of heart disease?
That's a wonderful question, Sigrid. I'd like to repeat the disclaimer that we have on our website that this lecture, everything that ATX Alive does is not intended to provide medical advice in specific situations. It's not intended to establish a patient-physician relationship. And those questions are, is there any possible scenario where statins are? Well, I'm going to ask that a person consult a plant-based doctor who's knowledgeable in these things and explore all the, is there any reason to have statins? Because in order to give you a good answer to that, you really have to know into the specifics of the case, which would blow the person's privacy, so I can't ask it. Any other questions? All right, very good. And is there any other announcement that we have? Next month, is it Ken? Next month?
Josh.
Oh no, Josh
Wayne.
PlantPureCommunities.com. Josh Wayne is coming to be our speaker. Well, he hasn't signed the agreement yet, but I sincerely hope that he will. We think that Josh Wayne is coming to speak, and he has overcome a health challenge. So I won't, reveal the secret of what disease he has reversed, but he's overcome a health challenge, and he's the regional director, not this region, but another region, and he's going to be in Austin for a few days, and he is willing to come and speak to us. I think it's going to be very, very good. And coming up, we also have more ATX Alive. We have a person who has been battling cancer and has a wonderful story of longevity and reversal, and we're going to hear from that person coming up. Are there specific topics that anyone would like to hear discussed in future ATX Alive presentations. Is there some? Yes.
How to assist your children in falling in love with a whole food plant-based diet?
I think that's a great one. The question is, how to assist your family members who don't eat a whole food plant-based diet, how to get them to fall in love with it. And I think that is a great question. And if you'll pardon me, I'm gonna make a little stab at that right now. And I think that people are won through their taste buds. And if we can feed them delicious food, and especially for the younger crowd, if we can help them watch movies, and these movies are on Netflix, and these movies are worth buying. There's a lot of good cowspiracy. The young often care about the environment, and watching some of these movies can speak in a way that relatives are not heard. And so feed them good food and give them information, and seek to win hearts and not arguments. It's better to be kind than to be right. Yes.
And invite them into the kitchen. Invite them into the kitchen.
Yeah, invite them into the kitchen. Let's make it together, because especially for children, yeah, and that's my strategy for children. When children are involved in the eating of it, the making of it, they're much more willing and eager to eat it. Carol?
I also work for a non-profit that I can come and do presentations to communities of interest, whether it's a school or an HOA or YMCA or any of those kinds of things. We're educatingchoicesprogram.org. Look us up and reach out if you'd like to share information.
Great. Yeah, the Ethical Choices program is a wonderful thing to show to people. Yes, Linda? A presentation on diabetes, type 2 diabetes. I think that's wonderful. I would love to do that. We'll do that for you. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, and we hope to see you next month, third Sunday of every month at noon. Thank you very much for your donations. And if there's a person named Dot here, I have a gift for Dot. If Dot has come, I don't know if she came, but my gift is in the car. But is there anyone here named Dot? No. Okay. All right. And is there anyone here named Alejandra? Did she here?
She texted me.
Oh, she's not here. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Have yourself a great week, and please send a thought up for me on Friday.
Oh,